I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Coming to you from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness of Tennessee. That's right. We're ripping through the electromagnetic soup. We're tearing through the atmosphere. And we're tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Dark Wolf's Den radio show for Wednesday, April the 6th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, we have a very, very deep rabbit hole to dive down tonight. That is the state of mystery of South Carolina. And we're going to do this show just a little bit differently as we are pressed for time tonight. So we're just going to go ahead and jump ahead to the first segment, which is one we call The Day in History. On this day in 1889, George Eastman begins selling his Kodak flexible rolled film for the first time. A film that even I remember in the 80s. You used to be able to take your film and drop it off, and an hour later you would get your photos. If you were lucky enough to have a 1-hour shop in your town, right? Anyways, folks, that is today's segment of The Day in History.
Say what?
Our quote of the day today, folks, comes to us from Charlton Heston. He says, and I quote, "Political correctness is tyranny with manners," end quote. And that, once again, was Charlton Heston, and that is today's segment of
Say what?
Now, I don't know how much political correctness they have over in South Carolina, but I do know the amount of cryptid creatures that inhabit the area, and it is absolutely astonishing. Like the first one on our list tonight, one that we found in a couple different states, but apparently they have a real liking for South Carolina, and that is the lizard man. That's right, this is called the lizard man of Scape or Swamp. Check out this case file.
Located in Lee County, South Carolina, Bishopville is a city of 3,471, and has with it a notorious cryptid stalking the nearby swamps, who has a scaly appearance and a penchant for munching on cars. Its name, the Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp, or the Lizard Man of Lee County. Its appearance is almost like something out of a comic book, but to locals and reports, it's all too real.
And as we will discuss more here in a moment, South Carolina takes their lizard men very seriously.
The lizard man was described as having scaly green skin with either red or orange eyes and 3-fingered webbed hands. It stood about 7 feet tall and had a stride of around 40 inches.
What's interesting is the stride and the height match, but this is an interesting height. This is something that I've known people almost 7 foot tall, and that is gargantuan.
The first modern reported sighting of the creature was made by George Holloman Jr. in the fall of 1987, but it was the report by Christopher Davis, a 17-year-old local man, that made the lizard man famous.
So here we already have 2 eyewitnesses who have seen the same creature. Interesting, like he said, the second one actually made it a more popular case file than even I realized until I researched it.
Davis said he encountered the creature while driving home from work at 2 a.m. on June 29, 1988. According to his account, Davis stopped on a road bordering Scape or Swamp in order to change a tire which had blown out. When he was finishing up, he reported having heard a thumping noise from behind him and having turned around to see the creature running towards him. Davis said the creature tried to grab at the car and then jumped on its roof as he tried to escape, clinging to it as Davis swerved from side to side in an effort to throw it off. After he returned home, Davis's side view mirror was found to be badly damaged, and scratch marks were found on the car's roof, though there were no other physical evidence of his encounter.
I would definitely say the scratches on the roof would be more than enough physical evidence for me. What about you guys? Sounds to me like it would verify the story at the very least, right?
He recounted, "I looked back and saw something running across the field towards me. It was about 25 yards away, and I saw red eyes glowing. I ran into the car, and as I locked it, the thing grabbed the door handle. I could see him from the neck down. The 3 big fingers, long black nails, and green rough skin. It was strong and angry. I looked in my mirror and I saw a blur of green running. I could see his toes, and then he jumped on the roof of my car. I thought I heard a grunt, and then I could see his fingers through the front windshield, where they curled around on the roof. I sped up and swerved to shake the creature off.
And from here, interestingly enough, the sightings would only increase.
In the month that followed the Davis sighting, there were further reports of a large lizard-like creature, and of unusual scratches and bite marks found on cars parked close to the swamp. On July 14th, 1988, just a few weeks after the experience that Davis had while driving home from work, a couple named Tom and Mary Way called the police to their home in Bishopville to report a bizarre incident involving their vehicle. Unbeknownst to them, something had come along during the night and ripped the chrome fender clear off their car, broke its hood ornament, scratched its sides, bent the antenna, and even ripped out some of the motor wires. Even weirder was that the police noticed that the fender looked as if it had been chewed on, as if an animal had used its teeth to rip it off the car. The Ways also discovered several muddy footprints all over the car, as well as clumps of red hair nearby.
It is also kind of incredible the amount of documentation that backs this story up, as it once again even had a police call issued on it.
One of the main investigators for this particular incident, Sheriff Truesdale, spoke to several locals who gave him their theories on what happened to the Ways car. Their reports were eerily similar to what Davis said he saw.
And the following is the conclusion of the investigator.
We learned that people in the Browntown community had been seeing a strange creature about 7 feet tall with red eyes. Some of them described it as green, but some of them as brown. They thought it might be responsible for what happened, said Truesdale. Most sightings are said to have occurred within a 3-mile radius of the swamps of Bishopville.
Which, from a biological, natural standpoint of nature, that would make sense. That would be its home range within that 3-mile radius, right? But you know that it's got to be serious when the state of South Carolina issues a warning about the lizards, just in case. This comes to us from 2017 as the eclipse was about to cross over the United States.
With the total solar eclipse set to occur on August 21st, the South Carolina Emergency Management Division tweeted out this graphic, stating it does not know if lizardmen become more active under a solar eclipse, but residents of Lee and Sumter counties should remain ever vigilant.
So, like I said earlier, South Carolina takes their lizardmen very seriously. Credit where it's due, actually embracing a creature like that, right? That's something you don't see every day. Anyway, folks, you know, if we're starting out with the lizard man, that what's coming next has got to be even more insane, and you'd be right. Our next story is called the Boo Hags. These are creatures that you guys might actually recognize from another phenomenon. Give this one
The legend of the Boo Hag comes from the Gula people. They are called the Gula after the Creole language spoken here. The Gula people along South Carolina's coast have a culture of their own, one that is well respected by other South Carolinians. The Gula believe that a person has a spirit and a soul. Once a person has departed, if the spirit is good, it ascends to heaven, but if it's bad, it lingers here and becomes a Boo Hag.
So, according to the Creole tradition, this is more of a cursed creature.
A Boo Hag is dangerous. Its essence can easily slip into your home through even the slightest of cracks and will do while you're sleeping. But you won't even know the Boo Hag is there. It will creep around your house until it finds you asleep in bed. And when it sits on your chest, sucking all the air out of your lungs, that's not even half of the danger.
Did you guys just hear that? When you're sleeping, it sits on your chest and sucks the air out of your lungs. Tell me that doesn't sound like what a lot of people that experience sleep paralysis actually experience.
After the Boo Hag has sucked the very life out of your lungs, it will slip into your skin and use your body as a muse all through the night, leaving in the early hours. If the Boo Hag visits you in your sleep, you'll be exhausted after you awaken in the morning, but you won't remember having been awake.
Does this sound familiar to anybody? If so, then you may be dealing with a Boo Hag. However, you are in luck, because there are actually ways to get rid of the Boo Hag.
Ways to ward off a boo hag. They're obsessive about numbers. If you place a broom, a hairbrush, or even a kitchen calendar next to your bed, they won't be able to focus on anything else until they have counted every last straw in the broom, hair on the brush, or hole in the calendar.
Well, they may be some strange bed items, but all three together would definitely keep her busy for quite long enough to sleep, right?
To many Gula people living in South Carolina, Sea Islands, and coastal plains, the boo hag is very real. Whether steeped in simple folklore, passed down from generation to generation, or based on actual occurrences, cultural legends are important to a society, and many South Carolinians wholeheartedly believe, or at least support the cultural folklore of the Gula legend.
Perhaps it may not be legend at all. And once again, if you thought you'd already heard the strangest to come for this show, we're just getting started, folks. Check out our next cryptid. This one borders the line for me of cryptid. You'll understand why in a minute. This is called the Three-Eye Man. Man, these things are strange.
The catacombs underneath the University of South Carolina are a network of underground utility tunnels. Many date back to before the Civil War, with entrances scattered around the city of Columbia. There's a local legend of a mutant creature that lives in the catacombs who is known as the Third Eye Man. In 1949, a student saw a strange man entering a sewer manhole outside of the Longstreet Theater. A year later, an unknown man was spotted hunched over, mutilating chicken remains inside of one of the tunnels. He was described as having a distorted face with a third eye located on his forehead and had silver skin.
Now, the third eye is strange enough, but the silver skin almost makes me think we're dealing with an alien opposed to a human mutant. I could be wrong.
Sightings of the man continued through the 60s and 70s. In the 80s, a group of students were eventually attacked and chased out of the catacombs by a strange man wearing all silver clothes and swinging a lead pipe at them. Police searched the tunnels, but found no evidence of the stranger known as the Third Eye Man. After this incident, many of the entrances to the tunnel were sealed off and declared closed to students and the general public.
Probably for the better, honestly, as those catacombs are, the way I understand it, absolutely gargantuan and very dangerous indeed. Speaking of dangerous, our next creature on the list is called Messi. That's right, we have a sea monster. Well, a lake monster, actually, in South Carolina. At the time, and this comes to us from Mysterious Universe, at the time of its construction, Lake Murray was the largest man-made reservoir in the world. At 41 miles long and 14 miles wide, it's still pretty big, having a surface area of 50,000 acres. A maximum depth of about 200 feet, and the right size to hide a monster. A monster named Messi. The first sighting was in 1933 when Gilbert Little of Ballantine, South Carolina, claimed to see something large swimming in the water. The most famous encounter, according to the book Weird Carolinas by Roger Manley, was when something attacked the boat of Buddy and Shirley Browning. The couple had been fishing with their friend Cord Brazel when something the size of an alligator, it was not an alligator, Buddy protested, aggressively approached the trio. It tried to climb into the boat, Shirley said in the book's account. Buddy beat it off with a paddle, end quote. Although Buddy didn't know what the creature was, he thought might be a sturgeon, he docked and went back to his house for a shotgun. We was going to go back after it and claim it, but we never did see it again, end quote. In 1980, the newspaper The Independent News described Messi as a combination of a snake and something prehistoric. In 1990, retired Army General Marvin B. Corder claimed to the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources that he and his son encountered a serpent-like creature about 40 to 60 feet long with the tail of an eel, end quote. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Messi, and unfortunately it is the only story I can actually find on Messi, but that's okay because we have another cryptid that we have traced across every single state in the United States. That's right, folks, we are talking about the Bigfoot, and apparently South Carolina has its fair share of Bigfoot sightings.
My sighting occurred in a town north of me in Ridgeville. I was delivering newspapers real early in the morning, and I was driving around the corner, and I come up to a tube to put the paper in, and I saw this thing. Turned around, looked at me, and it was big. I mean, it had shoulders were at least like this. But the thing that got me is when it turned me, I had the eye shine. It just freaked me out because I got the feeling that it was kind of angry. I was like disturbing it kind of, and I just floored it and got out of there. I was kind of shaken up.
So, not exactly your common Bigfoot sighting, but it's not the only one.
I drive down this dirt road pretty much every day. I have been doing it for over 10 years, and around 11 o'clock one night, I had a road crossing. And I mean, it maybe took 2 or 3 steps, it was across the road, but I was within 40 feet of it. What struck me was the height of it. I mean, the thing must have been 8 to 8.5 feet tall. I mean, I was that close to it, and it was massive.
Now, here's another strange case file, because you don't normally find people being within that close range of a Bigfoot and not having more interaction than that, right?
From Cherokee County, South Carolina, and was reported by the witness on Sunday, July 28, 2013. This sighting occurred in early daylight, sometime between 7 and 7:20 a.m. The witness was traveling in an area where there are a large number of farms, and the sighting occurred near a pine forest where a creek runs alongside the road in a swampy area.
As we discussed in an episode last week, I do believe it was, the Bigfoot would thrive in an area like this as it has a variety of water sources and feeding sources, right?
The following is her report. I was alone on my way to work, traveling up the road about 7 a.m. or a little after. I was topping the hill when movement caught my eyes, about 800 to 900 feet ahead. It was large and dark-colored. When I got to the spot where it crossed the road, I slowed down to see if it was still there. I was still driving, so I just couldn't take my eyes completely off the road. I should have stopped. But, as much as I could, I looked up the small hill. There was a massive creature on the top of the hill with gray, coarse hair about 3 to 4 inches long. Its chest, which was massive, had a white spot about 2 foot across on it.
The white spot on the chest is not a typical Bigfoot description, but once again, we've had descriptions across this country of short, big, white, brown, black, so this isn't the strangest of all the reports, that's for sure.
I was so in amazement, it never occurred to me to look up. My estimate was that its chest was about 3 foot across, and on each side of the white spot, there was about 6 to 7 inches or more of coarse gray hair, the color of a gray fox or a coyote.
This actually sounds more like an elderly Bigfoot, right? With the gray hair and the white spot? That would be my guess.
I went back after work, but did not find tracks or disturbance of any kind. However, there was an overpowering smell. It smelled like fresh meat, like a meat locker. BFRO investigator Matt P. followed up with the witness and adds the following details to this report. He said, I spoke with the witness at length about the creature that she observed in southern Cherokee County. The sighting occurred in the early morning during the witness's drive to work. She initially saw the creature traveling from south to north across a semi-open pasture adjacent to a creek. It crossed the road beside the creek, heading toward a densely wooded area of pine forest. It was moving very quickly. She was able to see the relative size of the creature as it moved across the road at a distance from her, and again as she drove by the area where it crossed. At this time, she was able to get a much closer look at it. It was clearly upright and covered in coarse, charcoal gray hair. Interestingly, she stated that it had a section of hair on its chest that was nearly snow white. She likened the texture of the creature's hair to that of a yak. She kept emphasizing how massive the creature was, its chest being roughly 3 foot in breadth. She told me that she had no doubt that the creature she saw that morning was a Sasquatch. When she returned to the location after completing her workday, she didn't see any blatant sign of the creature, but she did notice that there was an overpowering smell of flesh in the air.
And of course, most of these Bigfoot cases come with an odd or really bad smell, like the skunk ape in Florida, for instance. So again, this fits the case files that we've already heard very well indeed. And it looks like we have time for one more Bigfoot case file before we close out the first half.
Comes to us from Oconee County, South Carolina. The report was submitted by the witness on Wednesday, November 30th, 2005, and happened just off of Highway 24 on the back road to Fairplay. The sighting occurred near a pond that looks like a swamp that was shallow with scattered timber, most of it falling or rotted. The witness gives us this report. He said, "For years, our neighbors would tell us that there was a Bigfoot that roamed the woods where we lived. There were talks about cattle being dismembered. We thought it was a way to keep us from wandering off and finding the illegal plants that they may have been growing. The only reason we somewhat believed them was because the grandmother who told us this was a minister at a local church. She is no longer with us. The day I saw what I believed to be a Bigfoot was a summer day in the early evening around 7:45 to 8:30-ish. My sister and I were going to visit our friends. She was driving. We didn't have the lights on because it was not dark at all. We traveled this route all the time. During the school year, the bus travels this route also. The reason I say this is to let you know I'm familiar with the area. As we approached the small bridge that crosses a pond that we call a swamp, we both noticed it in the middle of the road. At first, I thought it was a bear. As she slowed the car and hit the horn, it stood up, looked in our direction, and took off across the swamp. I have seen many bears. Twice, too close for comfort. One of those times, I had one stand up in front of me in my grandma's backyard. I think it was as spooked as much as I was, and we both ran. It ran away on 4 legs. So, I know what I saw was not a bear.
In my opinion, it should not be hard to distinguish between a bear and a Bigfoot. Just saying.
I remember being amazed watching this thing run off. I asked my sister to turn around and go back. She locked the doors and turned around. When we got back, there was something in the road that it must have been eating. A rabbit, possum, some type of small animal, probably roadkill. I can tell you, it was dark brown, at least 6 to 7 foot tall. It happened so quick I was not able to get a good look at the face. All I can remember was it was big, hairy, and had a large back with no neck. I was 16 years old at the time. My sister was 18. No one believed us, not even our neighbors. I am now 34. I can still see the image in my head. What made me recall this was the footage where the men on the horses recorded it walking away. Seeing that thing walking back into the woods looking at the large back and the muscle, man.
So far tonight, folks, it sounds like South Carolina has a variety of cryptid creatures, from lizardmen to Bigfoot, and it amazes me that those two are getting along so well in the same state, as they both seem to have a population there, right? But you guys know that music means we have to go ahead and take a network break right here. So my name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you're listening to the Dark Wolf's Den radio show exclusively on Ripon, Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. We'll be right back with the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den radio show after these messages. Stick around, don't touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den show on a Wednesday night. Hi everyone, it's AJ, the Ripon Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's Dark Wolf's Den show? State of Mystery for South Carolina? I know I am. If you are and you haven't done so already, please hop on over to our website, riponrabbithole.com. That's RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. There you can sign up for your exclusive Backstage VIP Pass, which is going to give you unfiltered access down the rabbit hole to our privatized social media network. Now, I can tell you, we've been doing a lot of work, maintenance, that we've held off until after the Freedom Flame. We've been making dynamic changes to our platform that I think you will enjoy. One is if you comment on anything that goes down the rabbit hole, it will instantly pop back up to the top of the rabbit hole, which makes social media engagement over there all that more fun. So I invite you over to sign up. It's absolutely free. It always will be. And it's going to give you unfiltered access to a social media network based in freedom. We are not a big tent media company, so we're not going to shadow ban you or remove you or deplatform you. And we don't make any money, so we'll never demonetize you. Nevertheless, we do not sell, share, or give away your personal information, so you can feel comfortable about doing that. Tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific, that's 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 7 p.m. for those of you on the East Coast, we're going to have a special VIP backstage announcement from the Freedom Fighters of Central Wisconsin. Now, that's not going to be broadcast here on the radio or on YouTube, so you'll want to join us in the Backstage VIP Lounge tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time for a very special announcement from the Freedom Fighters of Central Wisconsin. Then Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den Show will return again tomorrow night, Thursday, April 7th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as all shows do. He's going to dive through another state of mystery for South Dakota. Be here or be square. And I'll take you through the rest of the weekend starting Friday night, April 8th, with a journey deep down the rabbit hole as we explore, is it possible to go faster than the speed of light? And if so, what happens? And then Saturday night, what happens when it rains spiders? And we'll finish out Sunday, April 10th, with a look at hoaxes. We'll return back to tonight's topic, the mystery of South Carolina. You're listening to the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den Radio Show, State of Mystery Series, South Carolina, for Wednesday, April the 6th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, in the first half, we went over a lot of strange cryptids, from Bigfoots to lizard men, and even a man with a third eye, though I'm not entirely convinced that's a cryptid. If you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely go back and check out the first half of the show. But as we go into the second half, of course, we know that we always cover the hauntings of the state in the second half, and South Carolina definitely has its fair share of hauntings. The first story tonight, folks, comes from, actually, my neighbor told me about this, and I went ahead and looked it up. So I'm going to include it before we get to our normal ghost stories. But this is about a buried treasure, a haunted buried treasure. Check this out. Who doesn't love a good buried treasure story? Who doesn't dream of finding it? Well, I don't know if I would go looking for this particular buried treasure, as this treasure comes with a guard of a ghostly pirate who watches over it. The story goes that when the Civil War broke out, a young soldier was told to gather all the people and bring them in off Folly Island. When he got to a particular rundown shack, he found an elderly black woman and child living there. She didn't want any part of leaving her home and told the soldier at the time that she lived in her house. She told him of pirates who had come ashore to bury 6 chests of gold, silver, and jewels. She even showed him the 2 oaks that the treasure was buried between. She then told him that when they had gotten all the treasure inside the hole, that the captain buried a knife in one of his crew and threw him upon the treasure itself. The soldier, being curious, wanted to make sure that he was sure of the location, but the old woman told him to leave the treasure alone, that there was a pirate watching the treasure, whether he was dead or not. Later that night, the soldier and a friend went to find the treasure, and the more they dug, the higher the winds came, and the closer the lightning, until it became so bright that before them stood a silhouette figure of a pirate. Needless to say, the treasure remains buried, and the story would have, but not for the soldier who told it at a reunion, and another man finally happened to put it in print. That's the story of the ghostly treasure of Folly Island. So this sounds more like a cursed treasure than anything, but definitely not one I would want to happen upon if it has an angry pirate watching out for it. But let's get into our normal ghost stories. What do you guys say?
Boone Hall Plantation and Gardens. Boone Hall Plantation and Gardens, located off of Long Point Road in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, is a historic district and sprawling abode recognized both as being one of America's oldest plantation homes still in operation to this day, as well as for continually producing crops for over 320 years. Historically, the earliest known mention of this site was offered in 1681 in a land grant from then-owner Theophilus Patey to his daughter Elizabeth and her husband Major John Boone as a wedding gift. Though it's unsure exactly when the house was constructed, the land would eventually come to hold Boone Hall Plantation. In 1817, the plantation was purchased by brothers John and Henry Horlbeck, who would operate the grounds off slave labor. That is, until the end of the Civil War, after which the plantation would swap its focus to pecan trees. Boone Hall was sold again in 1936 to Thomas and Alexandra Stone, who would replace the original farmhouse with a brick mansion. The property would change hands once more, and from 1955 into present times has been owned by the McRae family. The McRaes continue to manage Boone Hall to this day, running it as a fully operational plantation as well as a historic district, and offering tours, seminars, shows, and much more.
So if you are a paranormal investigator and happen to live in South Carolina or be traveling there, this is one place you definitely want to check out, and here's why.
A number of tales tell this aged site is haunted, tragically, by the many enslaved who worked its grounds, with staff and visitors reporting extreme cold spots, instances in which televisions and electronics turn themselves on and off, the constant feeling of being watched, and shadowy apparitions most often spied near the old slave.
Now, the slave quarters is something I would expect to be haunted, as it fits the recipe for any haunting, right? We know it's high trauma plus high emotion equals haunting.
Quarters. A ghostly little boy and girl have been sighted playing about the area, and near the old kiln chimney, the full-bodied apparition of a woman clad in ragged, dark drapings, and often tending the land has been encountered.
This one sounds to me a lot like a caretaker ghost, right? No real interaction on this one, but taking care of the land just the same.
Lastly, a handful of visitors to Boone Hall have described run-ins with 2 ghostly soldiers, one attempting to remove a bullet from the other, and many report feeling as if they're being followed by something, or as if they're in constant danger.
And of course, I've said many times before, I'd be more surprised if Civil War land wasn't haunted, right? I expect every inch of land involved in the Civil War to have a large amount of haunting, in my opinion.
Old Sheldon Church ruins. Old Sheldon Church Ruins, located off Old Sheldon Church Road in Yemassee, South Carolina, is a historic site that's grown wildly in popularity in recent times, namely amongst photographers, videographers, and self-proclaimed adventurers. Historically, the church was constructed from 1745 to 1753 as Prince William's Parish Church by one Colonel William Bull, who owned a plantation nearby, and held its first service in 1757. Today, Old Sheldon Church ruins are exactly that, ruins, remnants of what was before. The property is privately owned and managed by St. Helena's Church in Beaufort, with the site utilized for important events and weddings amongst the parish. Stories of hauntings surrounding these old pillars and archways date back over a century past, with many telling activity as a result of the bodies buried about, a collective which includes the remains of Colonel William Bull himself, who was laid to rest in 1755 before the church ever saw its first service. Across the grounds, many have described disembodied footsteps from empty spaces, strange lights sighted floating through the skies, voices from thin air, and the near-constant feeling of being watched, even followed.
So we had this lights in the sky phenomenon, 5 or 6 shows back, and I remember then being slightly astonished by it because it's not your typical ghost sighting. However, it does tend to be graveyards that we've been hearing this in, places that we would expect to have a super large amount of paranormal energy, right? Any graveyard to be expected, especially a graveyard of the Civil War, right?
A number of informal investigations have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EVPs, and orbs and half-formed silhouettes in photography. Lastly, the ghost of a young woman in a brown, colonial-era dress has been spied, standing over the grave of an infant, and those who've neared this marker have described being overcome suddenly by the strong emotion of extreme sorrow.
An emotional energy so strong that it literally has impacted the environment around it to always radiate the same energy. I'm telling you guys, emotion is one of the key aspects here.
The Dock Street Theater. The Dock Street Theater, located off Church Street in the historic French Quarter of Charleston, is a theater boasting its reputation as the first building in America designed exclusively for theatrical performances.
A theater with this much history is bound to have one heck of a haunting.
Over its impressive lifespan, Dock Street has been surrounded by a multitude of tales of paranormal infestations. A number of full-bodied apparitions in clothing spanning the eras, thought to be the spirits of both past theater-goers as well as guests to the hotel who truly loved the sight in life, have been encountered, and a ghost suspected to be that of Junius Brutus Booth, father to Lincoln assassin John Wilkes Booth, and frequenter of the hotel when it was first established, has been sighted watching rehearsals from the balcony.
And I can tell you, from being on stage before myself and being an entertainer in general, on stage there is just as much emotion, if not more, than is coming from the audience. So you've definitely got a swell of emotion in any of these theaters. Add in just a little bit of trauma, and there you go, you have a homemade haunting.
Across the property, many report disembodied footsteps and voices, doors that open and close on their own, shadowy figures that stalk the living, and the common sensation of being touched by someone or something unseen.
I've said it before, I don't mind being touched by a human, but I'm not as open to being touched by a ghost. What about you guys?
Lastly, the most famous present on site is said to be a female apparition called Nettie, in some versions, Nettie Dickerson. As legend has it, Nettie was a working girl in downtown Charleston through the 1800s that was killed by a bolt of lightning while on the balcony of the hotel. Nettie has been sighted wandering about, and has been known to materialize suddenly, or step through walls, startling all present.
And I would expect Nettie to have more than just those abilities, and here's why. She was killed by being struck by a lightning bolt. To me, that is important, let alone the trauma and the suddenness of it, but the fact that there's electricity involved. So if my theory is true and the soul merely leaves the physical body, then if it is supercharged when it leaves, it should, in theory, remain a supercharged soul with more abilities than other souls per se, more ability to manifest itself into this reality.
Gervais Street Bridge. The Gervais Street Bridge along U.S. Routes 1 and 378 is a reinforced concrete arch bridge spanning the Congaree River that connects Columbia with West Columbia in South Carolina, and this old bridge site has played witness to a number of tragic deaths, being suicides and accidents, which many purport has left a permanent supernatural scar. Across its expanse, many have reported lights flickering above lone walkers inexplicably, extreme cold spots, and instances in which music over car radios cuts out and is replaced by ghostly voices.
Now, if I said I was surprised by that, I'd be lying. As we know, spirit has the ability to manipulate electricity. We literally just discussed that. However, I gotta say, if I'm driving around along a bridge, and the radio is playing and I'm listening to my music, singing along, and suddenly the music stops and I get a voice coming over that is not a DJ but a ghost, I may be more than a little freaked out. What about you guys? I don't know how well I would handle that, right? Knowing me, I'd probably stop and try to have a conversation with it, though. Where can I get the best signal here,
Orbs and full-bodied apparitions are often captured in the backgrounds of photographs. Shadowy figures have been known to stalk the bridge, and several chilling tales tell of phantoms that appear suddenly in the back seats of moving vehicles.
Okay, as if the radio talking to me from ghosts isn't enough, go ahead and throw a couple in the back seat while you're at it. Really see what kind of good signal we can get then, right? See where I can park this bridge here to get the voices and the people in the back seat. Really, play it out, right? I don't know.
Also reported across the Gervais Street are strange floating lights that zoom over and under the bridge, an eerie fog that descends upon the area alone, and the constant feeling of being watched or followed.
And once again, you have these lights manifesting over and under the bridge, but over it just the same. This is kind of new to me in these haunting cases, these lights manifesting in the sky.
Lastly, it's said a woman was killed on the bridge sometime in the 1940s. To this day, many report encounters with a ghostly young woman along the stretch, often in the middle of the night, especially when it's rainy or foggy, and always seeking a ride to Columbia. A handful of Good Samaritans have invited this presence unknowingly into their vehicles, only to find that she's vanished by the time they've reached the river's edge.
This, of course, follows the classic lady in white story that we hear of the lady walking across the bridge, the hitchhiker in white. And once you pick them up, you're carrying along and they're suddenly gone. Again, not the first time we've heard such a case file.
Hilton Head Island. The ever-popular vacation destination, Hilton Head Island, located about 20 miles to the northeast of Savannah, Georgia, in Beaufort County, South Carolina, is a barrier island holding a low-country resort town that features 12 stunning miles of Atlantic beachfront. Historically, this island played home to native peoples for thousands of years, with the first Europeans to make contact being a Spanish expedition led by Francisco Cordillo in 1521. The island was officially discovered by, and incidentally named after, one Captain William Hilton under the King of England in 1663, after which its ownership would change hands numerous times over the years. Today, Hilton Head is split up between private residential zones and popular tourist areas, with numerous beach access points available to the public. Through its expansive history, a range of stories surrounding the island's many hauntings have washed ashore, with several frequenting Hilton Head reporting extreme cold spots in the heat of summer, orbs of light visible to the naked eye, and full-bodied apparitions of soldiers, colonists, and explorers spanning the ages. At the Leamington Lighthouse near the Arthur Hills Golf Course, a ghostly woman in blue is often encountered hurrying about, usually on stormy days. Local legend tells this might just be the spirit of one Caroline Fripp. In life and accompanied by her father, Adam Fripp, Caroline tended the lighthouse through the 1890s. In 1898, a massive and deadly hurricane hit South Carolina, and as legend has it, Adam and Caroline refused to leave the light. keeping it brightly illuminated through the storm. It's said that eventually Adam suffered a heart attack from the stress, that Caroline took him to the house before returning to the light, and that he passed on later in the evening. His death is said to have caused Caroline's spirit unrest, resulting in it echoing that fateful night over and over again into eternity. Also reported across Hilton Head from residents and visitors alike are objects sighted moving on their own, inhuman sounds that roll in with the tide, eerie EVPs captured in the backgrounds of recordings and phone calls, and strange patches of fog and mists that float with seeming sentience.
It would seem that this place is creepy enough for me to definitely agree that it is one of the most haunted places in all of South Carolina, and we didn't even have time to get to the college story tonight, as there's so many more stories of hauntings in South Carolina, but there's all kind of crazy stories from South Carolina, right folks? From the ghosts to the cryptids and everything in between. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that perhaps the state of South Carolina is a state of mystery indeed for the paranormal? Or do you think that perhaps we're barking up the wrong tree? In the end, folks, all you can do is look at the evidence, apply a little common sense, and you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, April the 6th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, the den may be closing, but now that we've kicked the weekend off right, the weekend fun has only just begun. That's right, tomorrow, Thursday, April 7th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, we will be back with yet another State of Mystery with the Dark Wolf's Den Radio Show. Tomorrow night, we're going to be jumping from South Carolina over to South Dakota, yet another state packed with the paranormal. I expect nothing less from the Dark Wolf's Den Show, right folks? That is tomorrow, Thursday, April 7th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then on Friday, April the 8th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, our buddy AJ the Ripon Rabbit takes back to the airwaves with yet another episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show. On Friday, he's going to be discussing one of my favorite topics, and that is FTL, or faster than light travel. Is it possible? Theoretically, yes, but can humans survive faster than light travel? There's so many questions, and AJ, I'm sure, will cover as much as he can on Friday, April the 8th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, that's right. Then on Saturday, April 9th, 2022, once again, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ returns with probably the creepiest episode of the weekend. I thought my State of Mysteries were going to be creepiest, but he looks like AJ's got me beat with Saturday's topic of raining spiders. That's right. Apparently this is a thing, and a thing that has happened more than once. Check out everything you need to know about raining spiders on Saturday, April the 9th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then on Sunday, April the 10th, 2022, also 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. All shows here on the network start at that time. AJ will be covering yet another one of my favorite topics, and that is hoaxes. There's a lot of hoaxes going on in the world right now, folks, and it's good to know how to spot these and not be deceived with the lies that are presented to you mainly by the mainstream media. And that is, of course, once again on Sunday, April 10th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, on the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show starring our buddy AJ the Ripon Rabbit. And if you haven't already, you can always find out about upcoming shows at the RiponRabbitHole.com. That is RiponRabbithole.com. Over there, you're going to find a plethora of information, like the Listen Live section. You'll always be able to stay up to date with the shows we got coming up all weekend long. That's right, our on-air schedule. Also, you can jump down the rabbit hole. That is our exclusive privatized social media network, and all the rabbits love to hang out over there. I'm going to be dropping more information over there as time goes on, so make sure you keep your eyes peeled. There's also the 24/7 Backstage Lounge, one of my favorite places to hang out with the rest of the rabbits. I haven't been to lately as I've been kind of busy with work and stuff, but my other job, I should say, but I will definitely try to pop in as soon as I can. And if you'd like to pop in and hang out with the rabbits, it's really easy to do. Once again, just sign up for your Backstage Pass on the RiponRabbitHole.com. It is absolutely free, always will be, and that garners you access to everything else on that site. Last but not least, there is our groups section, where you can find things like the Dark Wolf's Den Show group, the International Mandela Effect Conference group, the Ripon Rabbit Hole group, Lucid Dreaming, and a number of others. And if you can't find a group you'd like, well, you just make one yourself. And it's just that easy. Go ahead and invite people, and you'll have your own group going, just like the rest of us. And we would love to see you over there. With that said, folks, we have to get out of here tonight, so it has been an honor and a pleasure to hang out with you guys. On behalf of AJ the Ripon Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, everyone involved with Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, as well as Tom Bayless and Red Shed Studios for this amazing music. My name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you've been listening to the Dark Wolf's Den radio show exclusively on Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole, home of the Freedom Flame. Until we meet again, folks, remember, stay awake, but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. How? Yeah. That's right. Let's go, Brandon. Bye, guys.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever home. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Just illusion, manifestation, or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a